Welcome to our BNI Talks webinar. This week, we've got Claudia Thompson, and we are talking about leadership team transition tips. This is not a formal leadership team training. For those who have asked, this is just us having a chat and giving you some good ideas on what to do before your leadership team takes over. So before we start, Claudia, why don't you do an intro of yourself?
Oh, thank you. I was not even expecting this opportunity. Just kidding. Hi, everyone. Claudia Thompson. I am the Managing Launch Director of the Northeast. I'm also the head of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion panel for all of BNI US. So I'm really happy to be here. I was an area director up until last month. I was an area director for, I don't even know how many years, Steve. Everything's blending together.
I don't know, 3-4 years?
Yeah, of Suffolk County in Boston, Massachusetts. So thank you all so much. And I'm excited to have this talk today.
Yeah, this is an important one, and I'm glad, Claudia, you're on this one because you and I have been doing leadership team training and talking about transitions and your experience as a director and what happens when, one leadership team ends, the new one comes in, and sometimes there's no real handoff and problems arise, right? So why don't we get right into it right now? Remember, if you've got a question, put it right into the Q&A section. And if you've got a comment, you can put it right here in the chat. All right. So let's start with something very basic here. Who knows what happens 8 weeks from today? Can anyone guess? You can throw it right into the chat.
Let's see if they come up with it. 8 weeks. Jim, I am surprised at that answer. Yes, somebody got it.
Here's your hint. Yes. All right. Yes, something good. Yes, Dan, it is something good. It is your new leadership term. Right. Everybody takes over. Exactly. So this is exciting because, it's the end of something and it's the beginning of something. And we are here to talk about what happens between now and 8 weeks from today. So let us get into it. So if we're going to do this transition properly, how do we get there? So this is the agenda we're going to work with today. So I think the most important thing is to set up a meeting with current and future leadership and support teams. I'm sure, Claudia, you've done that many times with your teams.
Yeah, one thing that I love that the chapter my own home chapter has done is that we used to, before in the old days when we would go out and all have lunch together, but we would have like a session and we would kind of just brainstorm, connect, and the new president would bring out their new team and talk about it. But it was nice, like a nice handoff. So everyone got to talk about some of the things that were currently happening and then talking about the future. So it was a really nice sort of informal thing. It's gone from informal to pretty formal, actually. But either way, it's really just being on the same page and then being able to the handoff to have it be cleaner for the next term.
Absolutely. So let's start. So these are these 5 points, reports talking about what worked, what changed, what can we do better, and what we can do that we've never done before are things that we'll talk about today. So let's start with very simply getting ready for this meeting and running reports. So here are some reports, and we'll talk about why we run them and why it's a good idea for you to make them. But also in the chat, please feel free if there's a report that you think is being left out, you want to add to this meeting, please do. So let's start with the membership dues report. I love this report because it's got so much good information on it. But I think in terms, Claudia, of a handoff, you need to know who's on the roster, who needs to be taken off the roster, right? Who's late with renewals, all of that stuff. So this is a really handy report.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of people, and it doesn't sound like, it doesn't quite sound like what it is. It has more information than what it does, including those renewal dates. So it is definitely key for sure.
Yeah. Some people, by the way, run this report and they don't scroll all the way down. There's good stuff at the bottom there as well for you to look at. Definitely run this membership dues report. It's also going to show who's up for renewal. So this is a great time to use that report to look at, who is at the 7-month mark where we can do a 7-month renewal. If you haven't done that, a 7-month review, I should say, if you haven't done that before. Also use that because it shows all the due dates. Next is the cumulative VP report, and there's also the summary POMS report. Claudia, in this case, both pretty much the same info, just kind of delivered a little bit differently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've always been more of one to use the POMS report, just because, you know, as it past VP, it seems a lot easier to utilize that. But I think certainly either one is fine. It has all of the information. It tells you everything that is on, you know, what's been happening recently, again, so that you can kind of set your members up for success. And I think a lot of times when there's like a handoff and you don't have these reports or this information, it can become kind of just sort of like other people jumping in and kind of like other people sort of like, yeah, sorry, that's what happened. And you don't know who's attendance and everything else. So I think it's a good opportunity to really be able to figure out how to have people be successful for the next term.
Yeah, and for those of you who have not seen these two reports, the cumulative VP report is a lot easier to see because it's all on one page. When you're running summary POMS report, is going to go month by month for the past 6 months to show kind of a deep dive on that stuff. So just to get an overview, cumulative VP report is not necessary, but a summary POMS report is one that I would definitely recommend. Okay, next up, the Power of One report. People love the Power of One report or they dread it.
I love it because I'm 100 every month, so I love that report. But I think
true.
I think that it's so key because as a chapter, if you see that report and you can get more people, I think encouraging people to, if you're not doing this already, I really love having the Power of One visible to the group every week, right? Because that has accountability. When we were meeting in person, and some of you may be meeting in person, having the numbers on the roster, that's always been helpful. But it also, for the people that are in the group who might be new or really never figured out what it was, it kind of gets you in reality of where you're at. So then that way you know something to strive for. So I think that running that report will know where people need to focus on. Do they need more one-to-ones? Do they need more referrals? What does the group need as a whole? Oftentimes it's usually visitors. And then you can kind of decide on what ed moments to put together or anything else that the group needs to focus on.
I'll tell you, I was talking to a member and I mentioned I happened to run her chapter's Power of One report, and it was all red and gray. And I'm like, this is impossible. There's too many people in this group. And it just turned out it was a matter of doing the data entry, just putting it right into the app. You did a one-to-one, put it in there. That's your referral, do that. And within 1 month, even though the Power of One is a 6-month look, right? One solid month pulled everybody up at least one color. So the grays became reds and the reds became yellows. And it's an easy fix. And I think if this is one thing that you're not doing, it's really something that you should start in October.
Yeah, and it kind of gamifies it, right? Like it's a scoreboard. For those of you that, like myself, I'm visual. So if there's like a scoreboard that's like real accurate, that makes a huge difference too. Yeah, and it does create awareness. I agree.
Yep, good point. Oh, there we go. Yes. How do we get the Power of One report? So we had this a couple of webinars earlier.
Yes, we did.
This is available on BNI Business Builder in the resources section. So you'll want to run the report for your region. Is that right, Claudia?
So you don't have to. So if you put it in your area, so whatever website you're on. So I'm in BNI, I'm in several regions, but one of them is BNI Massachusetts. So it will pull up, actually, but it pulls up anybody in the corporate owned regions. So I don't know, whatever it is in the franchise side, they might be able to, it should pull up theirs. But if you put in the search, you should say Power of One. I had a member having trouble finding it because they were putting it in as traffic lights, and it's not called the traffic light report, it's called Power of One. So make sure you put Power of One, and yours, you should be able to find yours and it should pop up.
Yeah, definitely put your region or state, however it's divided out. And then also the month and date is good. So write July 2021, because there's all of them are in there. It'll be easier for you to find it. Yeah. So a great one to run. Next, chapter visitor report. That is important for 2 reasons. One, we want to make sure that data entry has been done to make sure that you've got all your visitors in there. But another reason might be to go through that and maybe re-invite people. We're going to have some events coming up, a homecoming event, which we'll be talking about, I think in 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really, really important to look at who's been there and maybe who could use a second look at your chapter.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I know I had a chapter that had a visitor day, and they just like a week or two before just sent it out to everybody. Sent out the had all the visitors and sent out the invite, and they got like 8 people just from sending it to old visitors. So yeah, definitely worth it.
Right. I like Mia's tip here. If you go into BNI Business Builder, the 4th or 5th day of the beginning of the month, the Power of One reports will show in the recently added section. Oh, right on the homepage. So you just go right there and it'll pop up for you. That's nice. That's great.
Thanks, Mia.
Very smart. Very smart. I love it. Okay. After that chapter visitor report, the sponsor report. This is important for recognition. You want to recognize those people who not just invited, although you want to give recognition to those as well, but those people who brought in visitors who became members. And maybe they're eligible for the Gold Club.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is that, and you just went over this on the Power of One, but the sponsors are actually added on there. Not in depth of who you sponsored, but it is good to see that. So if you're wondering what that new column is on the Power of One, it is for sponsors. So it means people that you've actually been responsible for adding, and then of course getting some additional recognition. So sponsoring is fantastic. It really is, and you can often do one-to-ones with those people. Maybe they do an ed moment or even a 10-minute for your chapter if they've been really successful at doing that, so that they can help other people with those tips.
Yep. Anthony's saying he's an incoming president for his chapter. It's a great presentation. How do we get a copy to use this checklist? We will make this report, this PowerPoint available to you so that you can get that. And also, what do we have? A long one here. Mike says, Power of One report on a 30-day scale and not a 6-month scale. People are working on improving their Power of One need to see progress that way. The current report will not do this on a 6-month scale. You know that.
I have something to say to that.
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, so your mentor coordinators, so be really thoughtful of who the person is that you choose for mentor coordinator, because the mentor coordinator really is the one that's kind of got their hands on this. You can also have somebody, maybe even membership, but somebody that you know that's sort of like the person who's really analytical or knows how to achieve something, moving things up. It really does take somebody that just has a skill and say, okay, if I did this and did that. I know I had somebody in one of the chapters that created, and we used to have that as a tool. I don't think we have it anymore, but you could be able to plug in and figure out how many more you need. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Jim.
So I'm just going to quickly type in here. You would go into BNI, for those asking, you would go to reports and then chapter, and then just look at the reports on the left side menu, and you'll see what's available to you. I don't know if you have access, if everybody has access to these. I think most people have access to these reports. The Power of One is, of course, the only one that is not there. That one is done in BNI Business Builder, but all the others are done in BNI Connect.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if everybody has access to just their own information, depending on what they are. If you're a leadership role, you're a vice president, you have access to pretty much all of this stuff, as well as that the president might. So there's different ones, but you can certainly ask to have any of these run.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yes, and everyone can see semi-promise part. Thank you, Jim.
All right. So after reports, let's start our conversation and say, hey, what worked for us? What were our wins? I think we spend too much time moving forward without stopping and looking back. This has been a crazy, crazy year, like we've never seen before. So much has happened inside and outside of BNI. So looking back at how you did, and I know we had a lot of chapters that actually did really well switching to online, had more business than they've ever had. Claudia, did you see that in your group?
Everything, more business, more increase in members, massive increase in members. Attendance was fantastic. So I think that, definitely a lot of that definitely worked. Being able for people to have accessibility, and now kind of realizing that the fundamentals of the meeting can be done virtually, if needed. Some of the things we know, like the feel of people's hands and, getting to connect with people in person. Yeah, we get that that was missing, but certainly having those things, I think for sure made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think taking time to celebrate your big wins, giving recognition to those people who did, went above and beyond to keep the chapter together, where people had a lot of questions. That was what, March of last year, so it's been a long time. All of those people from the previous leadership team and this current one, and the next one coming up, all deserve recognition in their own ways.
Yeah, yeah, it makes it's nice. It just shows that all their hard work doesn't go unnoticed, for
And
sure.
it's a great way to kind of wrap up the term.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so what didn't work? What you learned, man, there were a lot of lessons learned this year,
Were.
right?
Were.
Figuring
Yeah.
out, what we tried, what didn't work out. But you know what? I think for the most part, a lot of chapters have a lot of great stuff to say about, the fact that we jumped online and hoped for the best and good stuff happened.
Yeah, yeah, because I think even from March to September, right? That was before this outgoing term was in. But we were just, I mean, I think everyone was still hopeful that we were going to just be able to jump back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I think for this term, it was like, okay, we may be going out. We don't know when. Maybe it's in winter or spring or the next. They had no idea, but they definitely knew how to somewhat operate in this way. And so that was definitely, I think, valuable. There were things that didn't work, obviously for some people who were kind of tired of Zoom, for sure. And I think, less engagement, right? People keeping their cameras off when they shouldn't be, or driving while the meeting is happening. So some of that stuff, and trying to nip that in the bud. You can't really do that during an actual meeting in person, right? Someone can't just be driving around in the meeting. They have to be there. So I think some of those things were things that people brought up over and over again, of course, throughout the year. And so making sure that we work on that for whatever model, blended, in person or virtual, making sure that the engagement is there.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I talked to a member who had left BNI probably around March, probably around May of last year. And
Mhm.
she was like, I can't do Zoom. It's not something that I like. And then she rejoined in September. And she said, you know what? I had to learn to like Zoom because this is how I was doing business. And so she went right back into her chapter, and luckily her seat was still open. So it worked out well. So I think
Oh,
there's
that's
a lot of
great.
opportunities to go back and reinvite those people who said, I can't do this. And you know what? Maybe they're doing it now. I can use
Yeah,
it.
oh, that's such a good point, because I think people were like, yeah, they kind of like had their hands like tied, but and the reality is that the world is doing business this way. You're actually be able to connect with more people. So if you can get more practice on Zoom at your meetings, then that's going to make a huge difference. So hopefully pitching it that way to folks will help.
Absolutely. All right. So, oh, whoops, I went too fast. What can we do better? This is where we have to get honest, about looking at the numbers and
Mhm.
saying, where can we improve? Is your attendance down? Because, the one thing we know in BNI is if attendance is low, then referrals are low, right? Because
Mhm.
you're not in the room to hear people asking for things. So if
Right.
that's something you need to focus on, then that's a great thing to focus on, right?
Absolutely.
Or any of the other aspects that we look at, referrals or one-to-ones, all of those things that can really help the chapter get moving again.
Yeah.
By the way, I
Yeah.
like
No.
Andy's comment here about holding an alumni event, right? Invite all the former members,
Mhm.
and maybe something has changed for them too. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely a really great opportunity, and we're taking the certificate of credit. So yeah, definitely. Why not?
It's true. It costs them nothing to come back. I love that.
Yep. Yep.
So what can we do better in terms of the way the chapter runs? That maybe the culture of the chapter sometimes needs to change,
Hmm.
to get people on board with the things that BNI offers to help them grow their business, right? So if you weren't using the Power of One, maybe that's the thing that you can do better, or,
Hmm.
improved attendance, or maybe just keeping your cameras on in the meetings. Whatever you can do to make things just a little bit better. The one thing we always talk about, Claudia, is you don't want to change everything all in one day,
Oh
right?
yeah. Because then you don't know what if it worked or not, right? Like you're changing every aspect, but maybe if you work on one thing at a time,
right.
then you can see, okay, this made a difference. And you want to cite also really notice like what is the one thing that we really want to focus on. So if it's engagement, you want to look at what can we do to actually have people be more engaged in the meetings, outside of the meetings, you know, and all of the things that we're talking about makes a difference. If you look at the reports, and you can also see how are they engaged during the meetings, are they coming early enough to do open networking? All of those things are going to determine how to move forward. And you can't think of everybody as the same. You have to think of, you know, how to each person, what's going to have each person pop, but focused on as a goal, what's needed for the group. So.
Yeah, and the one thing that's a mistake to change everything is to upset the members. If they've been one way for like 10 years, you don't suddenly want to change absolutely everything. Choose one, maybe two things to implement and see how it goes. And you can always add things along the way, but a slow transition is always the best way to do it.
It's been my experience.
Okay, here's my favorite one. What can we do that we've never done? I love this because it's kind of like, you know, all right, it's a new term. And I think, and I know that some of the members here have heard people say things like, oh, we don't do that in our chapter. It's not something that we do. And it's kind of like dismissing something before you even try to embrace it. And there's always this opportunity to say, you know what, let's try something that we've never done before. Let's have a big event, you know, let's, you know, do like targeted inviting. Right. So Claudia, you know that as the head of the diversity panel that there's different types of groups that you can bring in, even starting with like, let's say you have a disparity in men versus women. You might have a lot of guys in the group and not a lot of women. You can invite women entrepreneurs, for example.
Yeah, you can have a female entrepreneur day. You can have, you know, young professionals day, right? If you have folks that are a little bit older, maybe they're Gen X and you know, baby boomers, and you don't have enough millennials or anything below that, I think that that's a good opportunity. You can have different types of, and then of course, different spheres. If you're really real estate, financial, of course, you already know spheres and stack days are great. And even though these are things that we talk about, maybe your chapter hasn't done them because you're not the kind of chapter to do them. Or even a visitor day. I knew one chapter is like, well, we have visitor days, but we do them our way. So maybe trying some of the resources that BNI has to see if that will make a difference, right? It can't hurt. So I think thinking about, you know, getting out of this, I think one thing that we could take away from the last 16, 17 months is that, you know, things are completely unexpected. And then when you have to, something new gets thrown at you, you can, you know, just go for it. I know for myself, even in my business and my whole life, I took on new challenges, things that I never would have done because I was like, I'm not going to be able to definitely conquer this. So, and it's actually helped me even more. So I think everybody taking that on in your chapter, one thing that you do, I love this, Steve, like one thing that you can take on maybe this quarter, you know, do one new thing every quarter to see if you can make a difference and have a shift that way is great.
Yeah. I like what Celestine said. They had a Zoom trade show. That sounds like innovation.
Right I would love that. That's
cool.
Awesome. Very curious about that.
All right. All right. Jim wrote something long. I'll have you take that one, Claudia.
Oh, I have to read it, Jim. Condense these. Okay, let me see. So chapters that reviewed their meetings and looked at them through the eyes of a visitor have found ways that they can tweak things so the meeting is more powerful, a more powerful show for their visitors, and then which means ensuring they don't use jargon or acronyms, explaining them and saving. That's true. Using acronyms or jargon, it sounds weird and they don't understand what you're saying. Until the end of the meeting while visitors are in the briefing. Yeah, so doing things and then waiting for the visitors at the end and then talking about some other things. Yeah, I think that's actually the new agenda is built that way. I think it's actually built where you do everything where there's like the show and the performance. So if you don't know where it is, Steve, where is the new agenda that they can download?
Oh, yes, you can go to bnicoreregions.com and scroll to the midway point of the homepage, and you will see the homecoming information, and that agenda is in there. And we've also got stuff we're going to talk to you about right now, and that is all about the upcoming leadership team training. So we're sworn to secrecy on some things, and we do have 4 points that Claudia is about to reveal. So let's go through them. I think you're going to like this.
Yes. So, okay. So there is the leadership team manual that you're used to getting. That is going to be available by September 9th. So don't panic and don't worry. You'll have plenty of time. But I encourage you, as soon as you do receive it, take time to start reading it. Don't wait till October 1st or October 3rd to start picking that up. And that's going to be shared with everyone with the new leadership team positions. Next up. So the training is shorter this year, everybody. Yay, get excited about it. Yes, it's significantly shorter. Oh, thank you, Mia. I love when people help. So the training is significantly shorter this year for most of the professions. So it's 60 minutes in most cases. It is going to still be a little longer for some of the other more in-depth roles, but not as long as it used to be. So definitely helpful, and it's going to be live virtual, so that's great as well. Next one. Yes, so the VP and MC is a longer session. That one is the ones that we were talking about due to the cross training in all the positions and specialties, right? But one thing is that the membership committee for the last 2 years, we were breaking out each designated committee chair, and now everybody's all together. So it doesn't matter when you're going to get the selection of what times to pick. You can pick any leadership, any membership committee training, and it's going to be all the same information. And then vice presidents are going to have an added time just because of to train you on BNI Connect. And last but not least, focus on goal planning in October. So last year we had taken on also adding goal planning on top of the general sessions and your leadership position training. So we are going to move that aside. We're going to have you focus on just learning your role first, and then you'll all come together and focus on goal planning, which I think is a really great idea because of the fact that it is, you already have a little bit of time together, and you can start seeing like actually, doing your roles and seeing what's needed. And yes, leadership team training is next month. So hopefully all of you have selected your leadership teams. Make sure that they are in. If they have not, you're okay if you haven't, but you have to make sure that you've selected everybody like ASAP. So that way that we can get them in the system, because otherwise they will miss communication that is key to training for their role.
Absolutely. And so there are going to be, from what I hear, a lot of different trainings this time around. So it'll be very convenient for people to go to, make sure that they're, trained at a time that works for them.
Yes, and one of the things also is that we are going to be, it's going to be national. So there are going to be, there's a select few of us that are training across the country. So there'll be more slots for you all to select from, which is good. But there's still going to be, you have to make one of the slots that are available. So that's another thing. But so once they come out, make sure that you jump on and look at the times as well. Yes, thank you, Mia. That is good. That is fine that you shared that. Thank you.
Totally fine, and thank you for doing that. And by the way, we'll have to attach the chat as well. What I'll send out to everybody who is in attendance today. We'll send out the PowerPoint and the chat, so you've got all those great links in there as well. Thanks, Mia, for that.
Cool.
All right, so let's go into our Q&A, which I make a shameless plug, is brought to you by our new podcast, networkingisnojoke.com. Please check out our podcast. These are good for CEUs, just like all of the other BNI podcasts. You can go to you can go to networkingisnojoke.com and listen directly on the site, or you can find it in your favorite podcast provider. You can even ask, I was going to say Siri, but Alexa and all of those others to play Network is No Joke podcast, and they'll cue it up for you while you're doing some work.
It is hysterical, everybody. So, and really, really good, really great tips. So I definitely strongly encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe.
Yeah, thanks. We just finished the 10 of them, and that's like our first season. And then we're going to come back on September 10th for another season with guests, one of which will be Claudia Thompson, and we'll have some others as well. So thanks all for those who listened and gave feedback. Appreciate it. So, all right, let's jump into Q&A. Is this presentation being recorded? Yes. So remember, we are putting this now in two places. We're putting it on BNI Business Builder, and we're putting it on our BNI Team USA YouTube channel. So you can find it in either place, starting on Monday. We usually, post them the following Monday from our Friday webinar. So next, where we see the reports as a member. So yeah, so Anita, you're going to go into BNI Connect. You're going to go to reports and then chapter, and then on the left-hand menu, you'll see a bunch of reports that are available to all members. All right, Claudia, how about this one? Mike says, we need a Power of One report that is done and color-coded just like the Power of One, but on a 30, oh, this is the same one. Okay, we talked about the 30-day scale that he was talking about. Yeah, so there's that question. I think what you can do though is you can run a PALMS report for the month, and that'll give you an idea of what everyone's participation in. It won't have the color coding, of course, but at least you'll get an idea. And by the way, every member can run a personal PALMS report at any time to see exactly what their own participation is.
Yep. So if you're worried about like how many lates or absences or anything else that you had, it will show you.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, Claudia, can you please repeat when the leadership team training is next month?
Sure. So I think September 9th might be the first day. I think that's when, oh no, that's when we're doing the manual. There's different select times. Jim mentioned it is on some of the core owned regions. It should be on there for the event calendar of when you can start signing up for those leadership team role trainings. That is, so that's the answer, is that it's select times in September. And then you'll have to select, a general session, and then your also designated role training.
All right, Jose's asking about, can we get the leadership team manual before September 9th?
Can you get I don't believe, it says by September 9th.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak on behalf of the creators.
Well, if it said by September 9th, there's a good chance that it'll be there before September 9th, but I know that they're still working on it and adding some new things. There's so many changes and things that we have to add in there. So now that we're meeting online and in person and in hybrid, and so we want to make sure that we get it all right.
Yeah.
Jackie says she went to the YouTube channel and didn't see the recording from last week. With Doug Dybert, it is there. It's there.
I saw it there. Yeah.
Maybe we can put it up myself. Okay, so yep. You want to go to make sure you're going to BNI Team USA YouTube. That is the correct one, not the regular YouTube channel for BNI. All right, so Jim says one member of a chapter I know downloaded the PALMS report, then applied the same scoring to it that we use in creating the Power of One, and voila, okay, there we go. He created a custom Power of One that could be color-coded based on the scores for the time period they wanted. So that's some next level deep dive Power of One reporting right there. But that's great. If that works for you, then go for it. All right, I think, oh wait, back into Q&A. Here's Mike. Let's add to the BNI Connect app a tab under Thank You for Closed Business that you can click on for recurring income from referral you receive. That's not a bad idea. You know what? Mike, you can suggest something like that. Just send it right out to our support team, support@bniconnect.com, and Jeremy or one of his people will get back to you and take that suggestion. That's the one thing that I love about working with BNI Connect and Jeremy, who kind of runs the show over there, is they are always open to suggestions, and they love hearing from members who have really good, innovative ideas. So thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All the revamps has been fantastic. So yeah.
All right, I have one last thing to talk about, and it's very important, and we need your help on this one. On Wednesday, our DEI panel discussion happens 3 p.m. We would love to get more people, especially if you've never seen one of these panel discussions before. It would be great, and Claudia just put the link in to register for it. This is benefits of a diverse leadership team, so it's kind of an extension of what we're talking about right now. And I will tell you, the more diverse leadership teams are, the more effective I think they are, the more creative they are, and the more that they're going to push each other with goals. So we're going to be talking about that. Please join us for this one. This is, by the way, the second Wednesday of every month. There is a diversity, equity, and inclusion panel discussion. Claudia, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, so those are also found on our BNI YouTube page.
Yep.
And Business Builder, I think. Yes, thank you. So you can find any of the past ones. So we've been doing these for several months now. If you have any issues or anything as well, you could always feel free to reach out to me, or any discussion topics that you'd like. So this past month in July, we spoke with Nicole Reyna. She is fantastic. And she's a VP who's deaf down in Charlotte. So that we're talking about some accessibility options. So we talk about different topics every month. We have Hispanic Heritage Month coming up. We have a thing on non-binary and pronouns coming up. So any of that stuff, that if you're interested, you can find those available, especially if you're dealing with these in your chapters, which we're hearing about more and more. That's usually what we have the topics on, but we thought this was timely given that leadership team transition is coming up right now.